it's easy to get wrapped up in the hype for a new movie, like In the Heights, especially if you're like me, even though I'm not on it as much anymore, film Twitter, if you're on Reddit and other social media sites. But online hype has shown us time and time and time again not to get fooled. If film nerds are excited for something, it doesn't always mean large box office returns. That's the moral of the story. Despite what I perceived, and I think a lot of people perceived as palpable hype for In the Heights, attractive marketing, I would say, and glowing reviews from critics, In the Heights took in a very lean $11 million at the box office over its first 4 days. And it's well below the $20 to $25 million expectation range. A Quiet Place Part 2 reigns supreme again. And far be it for me to be mad at A Quiet Place Part 2 because it's another damn good movie. Glad people are checking that one out. But you can look at this and blame HBO Max for like the movie also being available on HBO Max. But that's a lazy argument, I think, because you have Godzilla versus Kong, which was on there and still made good at the box office. You have The Conjuring 3, which was on there, made good money at the box office. And even Mortal Kombat did pretty well, all things considered, at the box office while still being available for the first month on HBO Max. Regardless of what we want to think, though, there's a couple reasons for this that I think why In the Heights underperformed. It's not a household name of a stage play like Hamilton, number one. I think Hamilton would have done really well had it been in theaters. I think Hamilton would have done really well because that movie, that play was such a force and became a household name play. Everybody wanted to see it. Not everybody could. And I think it would have been a big hit had Hamilton gone to theaters. Where In the Heights came across as what I jokingly say, the other play you don't know from the Hamilton guy. That's kind of what this movie,
true.
That's how the marketing kind of framed this thing in a way. And I'm going to say this is one of them hard to swallow pills for a lot of people. And before anybody gets on my soapbox and tells me, what does a white guy have to say about diversity? Let it be known, my Booksmart video. Go look that up. Go look up my Booksmart rant I went on a couple of years ago.
Why are you trying to get laid, Steve?
At any rate, I'm glad Joe brought that up again. But people aren't going to want to hear this, but it's absolutely true. This doesn't play well on Twitter or social media. Diversity doesn't sell for movies that people aren't already clamoring to see. Diversity doesn't hurt movies like F9. It doesn't hurt movies that people really want to see, that people are going to see because of intellectual property awareness, brand awareness, sequel. It's not going to hurt a movie like that. It's
Marvel,
not going to
for
be
God's sakes. I mean, look at Black Panther.
Marvel, there you go. It's not going to hurt a movie like that because people are already going to want to see it. But, and this is something I've resisted saying this in a way. And I'm not going to get into this debate of like, because this is kind of a stupid saying as is. And In the Heights, people want to call it the woke movie or whatever. They're starting to get some validity though to the phrase "get woke, go broke." There's starting to become a little bit of validity there. Because if you think about Ghostbusters, if you think Booksmart, if you think Black Christmas, the second remake, Charlie's Angels, the second remake, A Wrinkle in Time, Birds of Prey, and now you have In the Heights, movies that disappointed. And these movies are forward-thinking, inclusive-minded, quality varying, absolutely. In the Heights is the best out of all the movies I've listed, In the Heights and Booksmart. Inclusive-minded premises where they put their diverse casts at the forefront. It's the type of movie people claim they want to see. They want to see more Latinx representation. They want to see more Hispanic representation, more Black representation, more female representation, what have you. You're not going to the damn theater, though. You're not seeing it. It's getting debunked time and time again. And it also goes back to people, again, lying about what they want. In the Heights puts its diversity at the forefront, as it should have. It's a terrific movie, but in a criticism too, it's also kind of bereft of a conventional plot and tied to a lesser known IP. So diversity in cast and message isn't enough for general audiences to give a damn about this thing. And then I think you have the HBO Max factor. I think that is a factor in something like this. to say. But again, when you look at a movie like Mortal Kombat, when you look at a movie like Godzilla versus Kong, and when you look at a movie like The Conjuring 3, movies that are doing well in the theaters, people wanted to see those. They got off their ass and saw them, even though with a credit card and a stable internet connection, they could have sat on their ass and watched it at home. And of course, HBO doesn't release the numbers for how many people watched In the Heights on streaming, which is the new thing that pisses me off about this digital age, is that you never know how many people are watching what on streaming services. So I always hate that. But I think diversity in name only doesn't sell with movies. And I think that's been proven now. I think we have several years to show that is not the case.
It's
that
the
people
Queen of
aren't going to be sold on that.
It's the Queen of Cotway situation, right? It's
There's
like
another
you have
one.
it's the perfect movie that, you know, you would think would cater to Twitter, right? But that was your first problem, is that you tried catering to Twitter instead of making something good. It's the Star Wars Episode 9 problem, where it's like, oh, cool, you've got the two women kiss, like it's a gay kiss or whatever,
for like
but
a second
it's
in
only,
the background.
yeah, it's 3 seconds and they can cut it for the Chinese release, right? It's whatever, which is a thing. That is a consistent thing in every Disney movie.
Hey, you better
it's
apologize, John Cena.
LeFou, oh, he's gay now. Oh, he dances with a dude for like 2.7 seconds in the very last scene. It's like, Jesus
Don't get me
Christ.
started on Deadpool. I took heat from my Deadpool 2 rant.
No, man, I'm with you on that one.
Forehead.
But before you go off, yeah, dude, it's I'm honestly not that worried about it, because Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's got enough success under his belt. John Shu's got enough success under his belt, and they will take care of all the actors and all the people involved with In the Heights. It'll be perfectly fine. And honestly, yeah, it'll find its audience. I believe the article from Variety also mentioned that The Greatest Showman, which is, I believe, is an inferior musical. I was not a big fan of that musical at all. I think there were a couple of good songs, and like it had a cool concept, but it was very messy. I think it was even more woke. That's a silly term, but if you have to use it, it's like, I think it was more so than In the Heights. In the Heights is like a superbly competently made thing. It's a musical, but Greatest Showman, not so much. That seemed like scrapped together.
It did. It seemed like that. I remember that, because that seemed like that seemed like they had a 2.5 hour script that was very comprehensive, and then they had to cut it down. The songs in that movie are great, though. Yeah. I will not deny
Sure,
that.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say the songs are great, but what I was saying about how In the Heights, it does have stories we've seen before, but it does it with so much energy and everything that you can look past that, or you're actually enjoying yourself being in that moment. Greatest Showman has those stories, and they are as played out and as boring and as tedious as you could call them by the numbers as soon as they start and where they're gonna end.
It was so on the nose, incredibly
100%.
on the nose. And you know what? Greatest Showman, according to the numbers here, it only made $8.8 million at the box office without the coronavirus, of course. And then it wound up making, $438 million globally. Yeah. I think In the Heights will be perfectly fine. I'm honestly not that worried about it.
That
I'm not
movie
even that
was
upset.
absurdly leggy, though. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see In the Heights do that, but I think it's going to get edged now. I think it's going to get edged with F9, with coming into theaters. And The Greatest Showman too, it had a big benefit. There was not much. It came, if I'm not mistaken, did that come out over Christmas or Thanksgiving? It was one of the holidays.
It came out over Christmas. It came out after Rogue One came out. I'm sorry, not Rogue One. It came out after Last Jedi came out and Jumanji.
That's right.
So the big crowd movies were already out, and this came out, and that's why I didn't do so good opening weekend. But I know where Steve was going with this. When we got into January and February, which is usually a dry spell when it comes to new releases or even just good movies, that's where Greatest Showman was just climbing up the ranks.
And that was Scott Mendelson writes about it a lot, because that movie was, as far as week to week holds and how it kept staying at the top of the box office and making money several months after release. Not since Titanic has a movie had that kind of multiplier week to week. As leggy as it was and as consistent as it was for how long it was. It's like Titanic, Frozen, and The Greatest Showman for anomaly performances of movies in theaters.
Okay, see, when you said leggy, I thought you were talking about like the bearded lady. I'm like, damn, was she showing leg that whole time? I don't know, but
I meant showing legs, like in terms of
yeah.
staying power. That's a Mendelssohn term right there.
Honestly, I don't really see a scenario where at least, I mean, at worst, In the Heights will have a cult following because it already is a incredibly successful stage musical. It has the Lin-Manuel Miranda brand suited, well implanted behind it. So I think it'll be fine. It is a very interesting case study of like something that on the surface is perfect for a smash, to be a smash hit, but it might fade to the background. I don't know, but I'm honestly I'm not too upset about it.